If you haven't seen the game show SuperHuman, I highly recommend that you go see it. It's absolutely phenomenal. SuperHuman is a game show where people test their superhuman abilities with all sorts of challenges. This is a game show I did last year in California, and these people could do incredible things, and it's absolutely amazing to see them do their challenges, so go check it out. But I thought it'd be really fun and interesting to see if I'm able to complete all of these different superhuman challenges with my own superhuman ability, memorization. Can I use memory techniques to complete every single challenge? Well, that's what this video series is going to be about. So let's start with Nick Blay's challenge. This is a challenge I found really interesting.
All right, Nick, your challenge today is called Frog in the Throat. Our stage has been transformed into a virtual swamp with chirping crickets, buzzing mosquitoes, and humming flies. Okay. And this poison gas.
Yes, yes.
Among all of those swamp sounds will be the croak-like call of a frog. Listen carefully because you will have a limited amount of time to not only isolate those frog sounds, but identify them from the more than 4,700 species in the world.
So Nick's challenge is that he has to be able to identify the frog's voice out of all the swamp sounds. So there's 3 different levels. The first time, he has to identify 1 frog voice. The second time, 2 frog voices. The third time, 3 frog voices. And then that's it. His challenge is completed. And so what's really interesting about that is that you have to kind of block out all these other sounds and just focus on the frog voice that is there, or the frog voices that are there. Now, before I go on and explain how I will use memory techniques to complete this challenge, there is an assumption I have to make. Now, there are a lot of frog voices out there probably, right? Thousands upon thousands. But being on the show, I know that there has to be like a limited amount, just because maybe some frog voices, sound very similar to each other, and so maybe they're not used, or maybe I'm completely wrong, and Nick, he had to be able to identify any of those thousands upon thousands of frog voices. But for me to complete this challenge, I have to have the assumption that there's a limited amount of frog voices that could be chosen from, okay? So maybe it's 100, 200, whatever it may be. And that's the only assumption I need. With that assumption, I can easily complete this with using memory techniques. So let me explain how. So the first step is to create a memory palace with as many locations as I have frog voices. So say if I have 20 frog voices, okay, just keep it simple. I'm going to have a memory palace with 20 locations in it. Each frog voice is going to have its own location. Now, of course, if I have like 100 frog voices, I might split that up into 4 memory palaces, each have 25 locations in them. Okay, so that part's pretty easy. Step 1 is to get the memory palace to store all the information. Now, the second step is to change the frog voices into images, because for me, depending on the sounds I'm hearing, depending on how the sound is being played, what speaker, it might change for me. So I have to really make sure whatever frog voice I'm hearing, I'm going to have an image I instantly associate with it. So for example, if I hear this frog voice, I might think, okay, that kind of sounds like a train, or that reminds me of, the refrigerator. I don't know why, but maybe it just does. And so that's the image I'm going to attach to that specific sound. Now, this is something that Nick does.
The first frog I heard gets its name from the sound that it makes. It sounds like carpenters hitting nails. So a carpenter frog, it was the first frog in that series.
All right, let's see and hear if that's right. Nice job, man. Carpenter frog.
So that frog voice sounded like a carpenter's hammer, right? So that's something I have to do for every single frog voice, that would be in that limited selection. Now Nick, maybe he just has a natural knack for it. He loves frogs, right? He loves animals. So maybe it just comes a lot easier for him to make the distinction between the different voices. For me, no. Old school drilling, making my memory techniques, making the image to that specific voice. And so if I had 20 frog voices, I would have 20 different images representing each frog voice. Now, this is where it comes to a lot of practice. What I have to do is I have to really make the connection between that image and that frog's voice. And so I would drill that and practice that over and over and over again. So I would try to make a program or try to find some sort of software that would allow me to have the frog's voice and the image together, but come in random order. So maybe the first frog voice I had, maybe that would be the 20th voice I hear one time. But maybe the next time I practice, that's the 5th voice I hear. And so I want to keep changing it up because I really want to make sure I am able to identify the frog's voice with my image, not based on, oh, it's the first one, so it has to be this image. No, I want to be able to identify it purely on the voice itself with no other patterns involved. So I'll be practicing that a lot. Now, the next step, of course, is being able to identify the frog voice. So say in the first location, I hear that carpenter's frog, okay? So I hear the voice, I'm like, okay, that reminds me of a carpenter's hammer. That's a perfect example, okay? And so I see this carpenter just like hammering around. Maybe he's like in my bedroom. I see him hammering the walls, the bed, breaking the dresser, just making it really crazy and fun. But then I'm like, okay, it's a carpenter's frog. Now, of course, this one's pretty easy, right? The name, everything pretty much matches up. The voice, my image, and the name. And so carpenter's frog, and so maybe just to make it a little bit stronger, I picture a frog with a hammer too, just hopping around smacking stuff. So boom, I have all of that information together. So the frog voice, that's represented as the image I have, the carpenter just smacking my room apart. The name of the frog's voice is represented by the other image. So in this example, the frog with a hammer, right? The frog's a carpenter as well. But it might be different, if a frog's name is like Ictus, Frogtissus or something weird like that, I would have to make an image for that, okay? And the image is going to be based off the sound of the frog's name. So that's what I would do in order to be able to remember the frog's voice and remember the frog's name. Those two things. Now the third step is to practice with noise, because that's the challenge, right? Being able to distinguish the frog's voice from the noise of the swamp. And so what I would do is I would maybe find some swamp tracks online. That's probably there, and just practice that. So I'll have that looping in the background, and hopefully just have a program where I can randomly play frog noises. And so that's what I would do. I would be listening and have these frog voices just randomly play out. But I would take it one step further. I wouldn't just practice with swamp noise. I would practice with street noise, store noises, park noises. So I would have all these different soundtracks, background soundtracks, and it'd be completely different from each other. Because if I'm able to identify a frog's voice, with swamp background noise, street background noise, store background noise, if I'm able to identify a frog's voice in all those different situations, that I am 100% confident, if I was on the game show doing this challenge, I would be able to identify that frog's voice, because I'm like, oh yeah, I heard it on the street, I heard it in the library. This is easy. I know what that voice sounds like, that frog voice sounds like. And so that's how I would train. Now, Nick, I don't know how he trained exactly for it, but that's how I would do it, because I have to use just purely memory techniques, right? That's my skill. And so knowing all the different training I did for memory competitions, I'm going to apply that to this situation. And the more noise variety, background noise variety I have, the greater and greater chance I have of actually being able to hone in on that frog voice. Because a swamp sounds completely different from street noise, right? And so if I'm able to do that in those different situations, it'd be golden. And so let me recap the method I would use. So step 1 would be to create a memory palace with as many locations as I have frog voices. That's 20, that's 100, or 200. The second step is to change each frog voice, the sound I'm hearing, into an image. And I'm going to use my first association. So if I hear a frog voice, I'm going to be like, okay, that sounds like a cat screaming. So I'm just going to picture a cat. And then the second part of that is I'm going to change the frog's name into an image as well. So if it was Froggy Frogitus, I'll make an image based off that. And then the third step is to practice knowing my image to the frog voice, but also having the background noise and being able to zone in on the specific frog voices I'm hearing throughout. Because that's the real challenge here, being able to block everything out and find that specific frog voice or voices. Now, of course, when you have 3 frog voices to identify like Nick did, it's a lot harder because you can't just focus on that one frog voice. You have to be like, okay, wait, what other voices do I hear? And so you have to be able to identify one quickly, but move on to the next one. And so, of course, that's something I would practice. But for me, of course, I like to go a little bit harder than I need to. And so I would have maybe 5 or 6 different frog voices going at the same time. because if I'm able to quickly identify each one, then my speed for 3 would be a million times easier. And that's how I would use memory techniques in order to complete the Superhuman challenge. I highly recommend you check out the full episodes to see all the other challenges, but also to see who becomes a superhuman. Look forward for the other videos of me explaining how I would complete these superhuman challenges using memory techniques. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. If this video brought you value, make sure you subscribe, like, and share. My mission is to help as many people as possible learn how to improve their memory by teaching them memory techniques. I'm also building a community that you're a part of people who want to have a better memory. And every time you like and share one of my videos or content, you're helping other people discover how to improve their memory. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook. If you want more content on how to improve your memory and memory techniques, make sure you check out my blog on my website. Recently, I've been interviewing different memory athletes, and there's a lot of great information you can learn from these interviews, so go check it out. If you want to learn all the memory techniques, learn how to apply them to all sorts of information, or you want to start competing in memory competitions, make sure you check out my amazing memory programs. The links to all of this are going to be down below in the description. While waiting for my next video, here are some videos you can check out in the meantime.